So we are going to today we'll start with post uh, method in RESTful web services. That is a little bit different from what we saw in earlier session like get, because in get we are only reading uh, or we are getting the response that we verify, but in post we send the JSON body, or you say payload, means whatever we want to create. So post is basically for create. So whatever we have to create, we have to send as a data. So that data could be in a payload or that body in JSON format to create that. So let's get started. So we are going to, like earlier we talked about this website rest.in, and today we'll create some user. All right, so this is the JSON, okay, that we need to pass to create a user, and this kind of response will get. Okay, so first thing what we need to do is we know the response, in which format the response will be, right? So what I can do, I can, like earlier we did, to convert it as a class. So I can use the JSON to C#. That is simple one, but just be in practice. Okay, so this we created as a class. Okay, so this is the first thing we need to do. Okay, so let me create a class. So this was the test we created earlier. So I hope this was clear to you. So what I'll do in this project RestSharp demo, I'll add a class. And I can say create user, right? Because we are creating user. All right, and I can paste this class here, whatever we converted from that JSON. All right, all right. So here we are done with this creating this class, and this we will utilize in deserialize JSON response into these objects. All right, so we are done here. Now what we have to do now, the next thing is earlier we saw we created only one uh, this demo class where we wrote all the things like creating request client request, everything we are doing. But let me create another class, and this class we can say REST API helper class. Okay, even this is not a best design pattern, but this is just a starting point. Okay, so because as per solid principle, a class should have a single responsibility, that pattern. But here we will see we are doing everything in a single class, so we'll see. But just to start this, uh, I'm doing this. Okay, so okay, we created this one. Now make it this public. Okay, now what we need REST client. Okay, so that RestSharp provide us, right? So that we need to add here, because we already added for this project. Okay, the RestSharp library, and then we can create a REST request. Okay, and We can also create a base base URL. Okay, so our base URL is this. Okay, this is the base URL. So I can put that base URL as a string, right? So first, what we need to do, we need to create a client. Means whenever we in any test, whenever we have to send some request, so we need a client. Okay, so first which we'll create one method actually. So method can be set URL. Okay, and it will take uh, endpoint URL. So our resource will be this, right? This API users. Okay, that will pass here. So I can say string uh, resource URL, something like this. Okay, and this should return a client from where we are calling this. Okay, so the return type would be REST client, right? Now we have to create URL. So what I can do, I can combine this base URL and whatever the resource we are passing, resource URL, right? Because the complete this endpoint will be the base URL plus this resource URL. So there are different ways to create a client. So we can create client only with this base URL, then we can pass the resource, or we can pass in a single way or a single go. So that what we can do, so I can using system IO. Okay, so it provides a method. Okay, combine. So combines two string into a path, right? So that we are going to do. So here we'll pass base URL, whatever we created, right? And resource URL, what we are passing from the method, right? Now, then we'll create a REST client. Okay, so it says new REST client, and using this URL, we are creating this client, right? And then we'll return this. So from where we are calling this, it will return this client with, so client will return using this base URL plus resource URL, whatever we are passing from the test method. So we are making more generic here. Okay, so we are not doing any hard code like earlier we saw. So we are making more generic methods. Now what we'll do, we need a request. Okay, so which method we are passing, and what will be the headers, right? And so for that we'll again create another method. So this method we want to return a request, okay, with the proper headers and method. Okay, so what I can say, create post request. Okay, and this method will require a JSON body, right? Because for post we require a body of that, means payload for that endpoint. So what we can do, we can pass a JSON string here. Okay, and now already we have created this variable REST request. So what we can do, we can create a new REST request, and method will be post, right? Now what we have to do, we have to add headers in this. So like authentication, authorization, all those things we can pass from here. Add headers. Okay, so I guess only one header is required here. So I can say accept because it doesn't require any authentication or something. Okay, so application JSON we can, right? And the similar manner, suppose you need some user ID, password, so all those can be passed from here. So even this we will see, I'll explain you. We can, this is not a best practice actually, so I can put all these in app config file. Okay, and from there we can access this, so that we don't need to write everywhere these things, so that directly we can access from app config file, right? So we are added header. Now another part is, now we have to uh, add. So this another thing is add parameter. Add the parameter to the request. Okay. So here what we need to do, we need to pass. Okay. So we are passing that payload as a JSON, right? So we'll say application JSON, right? And yeah, let me ping Rasna. Yes. Okay. All right. So now we need to pass that JSON string we created. We are passing, sorry, not created. We are passing this, and now we have to tell what parameter type it is. Okay. So as you see here, the what is said adds a parameter to the request. If I go to here, so that what type parameter it is. Okay. So we'll add this parameter type. Let me. Okay, so parameter type is request body. Okay, so cookie, get or post, HTTP header. So we are saying it's a request body. Okay, now we are done. Okay, and then we have to return from here this request. Okay, so till now, uh, is that fine, Padma?
Yeah, and then one question here. Nowadays, REST URI, they're passing a parameter as an inline and along with the resource, right?
Along with the resource, I
Resource
did not get.
URI. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, earlier, we were having a parameter as such separate, but
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, like we have source URI somewhere, right? Yeah, source URI and bracket within a bracket the parameter value we are passing as instead of question mark and the parameter we were doing earlier technology
You mean
now.
that query string, right?
Right. Mhm.
Okay. So yes, that will also we can pass. Okay. Uh, yes, means it depends on like we are passing this resource URL. So suppose you are in, we want to include any uh, query string, so you can include here itself.
Mhm.
or you can pass if you want to URI, that also is fine, because the REST client provide a 3-4 overloaded method. So different, uh, if you see, it has a either it takes URI or base URL or URL, so resource URL, so different things uh, it has. So RestSharp will handle those things. Okay.
So if we explicitly say parameter type, means that is a query parameter, not inline URI parameter, right?
Right, right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, most of the REST nowadays development is using inline parameters, not like other like, specific parameters like queries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct, correct. Yeah. So we'll see if any example we can take up it here. All right. So next thing is what we can do. We can uh, after the request, we need to get the response. Okay. So to get the response, I can create a get response method. Okay. And this get response, we need to pass uh, a REST client, because here we will have to execute. So you remember where we were executing this, right? This is step. So when we execute, it requires a client and a request. Okay. So what we need to pass here, REST client. So I can say REST client, and we need to pass REST request as well, not this one interface, this one. Okay, so I can say REST request, and here we can return uh, the that response. So we already have this REST client created, so I execute. Okay, and it execute method requires request. So we already passing this request here, right? So and then uh, it we have to mention the return type. So return type will be that IREST request. Sorry, response, not the request. All right. So let me save this. Now the another part is we need to deserialize this, because whatever we get, that will return as a string. Okay, a string object. So that we need to deserialize into objects. So for that, uh, what we can do, I can say get content. Okay, that we need to make more generic going forward. So but we'll see, because suppose here if you take example, suppose we have a different uh, endpoints, like here just for creating user, deleting users. Suppose users, then employee employee details, different things we may have. So we have to make more generic this method. Okay, so we'll see how we can do this, but let's just here we'll pass not the request, response, because whatever the response we are getting from this, okay, so that will pass to deserialize. Okay, so here what we can do, we can say content and response, whatever we are passing, dot content. Okay, so a string representation of response content, so that we will get. Okay, so this will be a string representation, and then we need to deserialize. Okay, So we'll get as an object. So that provides this RestSharp, sorry, NewtonSoft provide this JSON convert. Okay, this thing. So that yeah, that we can include this or so here it says deserialize, right? So it has one method deserialize, and we can pass the content whatever we got as a string. Okay, and so actually the problem is here, if you see, we need to tell what uh, what kind of object it is. Okay, because when we return, so we will return the object, but it requires for which what type of object it is. So that's why I was asking to make more generic. Okay, because currently we have users, so there might be employee details, and different things will be here. So for making generic, what we can do, we can make this class generic class, right? So to make generic, these two angular brackets and this, and what I can say here to make more generic, I say uh, data table object kind of thing, or any name if you prefer, that you can provide. Okay, and same thing it will return here, and we can this is also accept the more generic, so I can say, all right, and then we can return this. Even we need to say we need to make this one as a generic, all right, and then we can return this deserialize object. Okay, so uh, here if you see, we are directly serializing using that class we created as a user. Okay, so even that we can do if we want to do, in place of making more generic this get content method, but that is kind of only will work for the uh, okay. So okay, let me repeat it again, this generic. So what will happen, suppose the problem is here with this earlier, we are fine with creating REST client request and response, so we don't require much about uh, for which object or which class object we are processing this, right? Like creating a REST client or request or response. Here don't require those objects. Sorry. So here problem is, now we are making it more generic as we started. So I can use directly a user class here. Okay, whatever the create user we created, not the user, create user we created, so that I can hard code here. I can write a return type of create user, right? But the problem is, suppose next time you create for the employee or the employee details, again you need to modify this method to work for that employee. Okay, so then another class you will add, then again you need to modify or need to create a different methods to handle that, right? So what we need to do, we need to make it more generic. It's a generic method we need to create, so that it can take any uh, class and which will return that as an object. Okay, so that's why we are making more generic rather creating kind of hard coded. So to make more generic, what we need to do, we need to make generic this class REST API helper whatever we created, and we have to make this method also a generic method. So for that we just what we need to do, we need to add this angular brackets, and this name anything you can give. I just gave a data table object. Okay, but you can provide B, C, D, anything you can provide. So we are saying whatever the object type we're passing, like here we will pass create user, so it will handle for create user. If we pass for suppose different class object like users or employee or anything, it will handle. So to make more generic, we need to get content and this angular bracket with uh, name. Okay, and then uh, deserialize object, it also we can make it generic method. Already it has, so that we need to provide, and we are passing the string content whatever we found here, and then return, so we are returning type of as a object. Okay, so here we are done whatever required for the processing post request. Even uh, what I can do, I can add a get method as well, right? So what I can do, so we can add any number of methods here, like for the different so suppose we created here, right, create post request. So I can create here same way, uh, like public rest request. Okay, I can say create get request. So same way I can create for uh, delete request, I can create for uh, put request, right? All right, so the same thing, what I need to do, I need to copy this, okay, till here, and we don't need this JSON string, so I will delete that. Okay, I don't need this, and here what I need to change is get, right? So that's it, we are done for the get request as well. So if I want to create a delete, so that I can create for a delete as well. So I just need to change the method, right? Create a delete request. So see how we made more generic to just a single class. It's not a good design, but still we are making more generic to use this. So even you can create for uh, put. So let me add that also. I can just add below this because put also requires JSON string, right? So I can say here, okay, we are done for the post. So see, just by creating this, making more generic, we are how simple we made our life. We created all kind of requests like post, put, get, delete. Okay, so this will handle all these four REST API verbs. This class, a single class can handle. Uh, but we need to refactor the and create a different, because this is not a good design pattern, right? So we'll see that. Now the what we have to do, we created already a test, right? So REST API test, I can go here, I can create uh, a different method. So suppose I create uh, Okay, create user. Okay, so this method, suppose method we want to create users. Okay, and this one we want to make as a method, right? All right, so now what we need to do, uh, we need to a payload, right? So what we need to do, we need to pass a JSON string, or that we created one method, right? Where we require uh, a payload, right? So what we can do, we can copy this payload to create this, and we can paste here. Okay, but we need to make more some changes here, right? So what I need to do, I need to pass as it is as a string, right? And just to make sure that it is as a string, we need some more changes here. We need to add double quotes. Okay, so this we can do from here. That's it. We are done. So we are done with the payload. Now, what I can create a object of REST API helper. Okay, and you remember we made more it generic. So I can pass create user. Okay, so we made create users. Uh, create users type. Uh, okay, maybe do I need to add? We have reference. Why it's giving error? Let me check this. Where is create user? Okay, so this is accessibility issue, so we need to make it public class. Okay, now if I go to, now it's fine, right? So I can say, suppose any name we can give. Suppose I say REST API, just a name, and I can create object of this. So here, in a different method, suppose you require, sometime you require create user, class object, sometime remember you need employee, so that all we can create. That's why we made it more generic. Okay, generic class. Now we need to pass, you remember, URL, right? So REST API dot set URL, and here we need to pass the resource URL, right? So resource URL is this. This is resource URL. Okay. Uh, why the REST client is defined as an assembly that is not reference? What happened? Set URL. The method name is good, right? Yeah. Yeah, some reference was missing, I guess. All right, so that done. Okay, now we need to create REST request. Okay, so using this method, REST request, sorry, create post request, right? That we need to do here. And this method needs that JSON means that payload, right? So we can pass this, right? And what then we need that we remember one method return the response. So get uh, get response, right? So this method returns response, but it needs client and request. So whatever the uh, g- these REST URL and REST requests we got as a client and request, that we need to pass, right? So that it execute and return the response REST request, right? And then here when we are getting the content, right? So there we need to use this create user. Okay, so I can say content and REST API and get content. You remember we created one generic method, so I can say create user, right? And because here we are deserializing that, so yes, now this will return the object of the whatever we created this class. Okay, now we know we are passing this name as a Morpheus, so now we can assert, right? And I can say are equal, right? Something like this. So content dot, now I can access all those objects here, right? So content dot name. So suppose, and what is the expected value we want? We say Morpheus, right? So that we put one assertions here, right? So we are done. So similar way, I can have a different assert here. So at least I can create like job name and job. So job also I created, and that it says leader. So just to verify whatever we were passing, and when we are getting the response, so we are getting the correct response, right? So let me build this. You are with me, Padma, right? All right. Okay, so build started. Now I can, if I go to this text explorer should display all these methods. Why it is not displaying? Okay, so let me put a breakpoint here and debug this test. What happened? It became slow, or what happened? Yeah, we are running this. If I say run test, strange. Yeah, my system gives some time, some problem. Yeah, okay, we got it. So now there are two methods actually. Uh, Test method, as you can say, also test scripts, get response user and get users. So let's say create users. So this I can debug, and I can show you how all this processing is happening. All right, so let me press F11. Okay, so it went to this class, and now it will create a REST client for us. Okay, and it will return this. Now we'll creating the post create user. Okay, and we are passing JSON payload here as a JSON string, so that will be created. And if you see in the here, see we got as a JSON as a name and all, right? We were passing that. Okay, so response, this will get us the response. It will be executed here. Okay, and now we will get the response. All right, now this whatever we created as a get content, so we are deserializing as an object, right? So response, if you see, it is a kind of a string, so that will be uh, what it is. Your step. Okay, so now we converted. What happened? Okay, so now uh, it gave us, if I mouse over here, it's okay. Let me execute till here. So see that assert is passed, and if we mouse over here, we see what it returned. ID is 44, created at today, and job and all. So that we deserialize as a object, and then we will create asserts here, right? So first assert is passed, and then I can run, right? So that is passed. So you can add as many number of assertions you want here in this test. So yes, the similar way you can create any number of a post request or get request, and the similar way we already have what I say this class which will handle all those four HTTP verbs, right? All right, Padma. So that's what for the today's session. Uh, let's talk about, you were saying about Yes, so array how we can do, because this will return this. Yeah, that is good question. So what we can do, suppose it is returning as an array. So what I can do, I can use this, and I can create uh, if not like this hard coded. Okay, so array I can access this way. If it is array, and for which index it is, I can access that value, right? Or so it will return an array if it is because this is a simple class. Here we don't have any that list. Okay, so uh, it will return a plain string and date time. Okay, but suppose somewhere we saw this data, right? This will return a collection of list. Okay, collections. So there we can have that as an array, and that we can access. So like any other array you handle, like getting iterating through the array index and getting those, so similar way you can handle here also, right? So you can count the length, how number of length of that means length of that particular array, and then you can iterate through that array and get the values, and you can verify. So the similar way what we do, so nothing else. This is the uh, rest sharp beautiful action here, which converts that as a object, and we can do anything for our verification purpose with that object, right? So yes, any other question? All right, so I'm not sure. Post web service, sorry, post, I'm saying soap web service example. I'm just want to take, if you remember, you can let me know. Okay, or I want to have one. One was there which doesn't work these days. This has many web service.net has many uh, so best web services, but nowadays this is not working. Yeah, if you know any uh, do you know any soap web service URL? Public soap web services. Okay, so one I got here. Okay, so this actually this is visual link, and we have these methods add, divide, multiply, right? Mm. Okay, so I'll just we'll see how we can handle, but just I will tell you how we can utilize under Visual Studio. Okay, so you copy that visual link, right, and go to this project where you want to add, and click as a add, and as a service reference. Okay, so this will open, paste it here, this visual link, and click go. What it will show, this is a service. Okay, and it has these operations: add, divide, multiply, and subtract. And I can click OK. So that actually we could have given a proper name. So let me give a proper name here. Uh, calculate uh, SOAP web service, right? So that name we gave here. Now, what I can do, I can create another method. So just I will tell you a little brief idea how to access. Okay, and add numbers. Okay, this is the method we created. Let me mark this as a test method. Okay, now we have to create a object of this, the service reference, whatever we created here. So if I say calculate, no, yeah, calculate SOAP web service. Okay, and yeah, this way, and I can say SOAP API or something I can say. Uh, what it says, name space. Oh, what is the problem? Yeah, this is. So actually, this way actually we can access. Why I'm getting error? Yeah, it's namespace. Should I say connected service? Mm, mm, mm. So, Padma, basically, we can try to resolve, but basically concept is I can add as a service reference, and then I can access all those methods. So, like add all those operations precisely if I say, so it will give me add here. Currently we have error, right? So uh, that way we can handle it. So any question on this? So see, now we got all the operations, whatever that supports that SOAP web service. Okay. Okay. You have my WhatsApp number, right? So you can either email or you can ping me. All right. So you can try this way, adding as a reference for the web services, and you can access all those operations. And the similar way, you can create your test, like whatever we created for the REST. So in a single uh, project of C Sharp, we can handle REST and SOAP based web services, but in a different ways, right? Okay, I'll ping you my email ID, or I know your email. Okay, sure. Yeah, we'll have. All right, Padma, thank you for joining today. We'll meet tomorrow and we'll have some more discussion. Thank you. Bye. Bye for now.